I think there's the top of the top of the top in certain professions. They have something that you can maybe acquire over time, but they just have an instinct about them that they just know what to do at the right time. I actually have a learning disability. I have dyslexia. And so I still struggle with it today. But back then it really affected my self-esteem and my self-confidence. So I was very, very shy and very introverted. And so I'm kind of try to be invisible all through school, just like that quiet little person, don't call on me. Although they would call on me and make me read out loud, and everybody be laughing at me and stuff. So one of the most important elements for success is belief, right? Because people buy people. It's your passion, your posture, belief, enthusiasm about what it is you're doing that attracts or influences others. I was out in my garage and I overheard him telling a friend about how stupid I was and how concerned he was about me. He says you need to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, right? Work on yourself, you make a fortune. Work on your job, you make a living. But you can also gain influence by keeping your word. What kind of a person, what kind of a leader are you when everything is turned against you, right? That's when the real character and I think real leadership shines. Somehow my cards got all mixed up. I'm just panicking, I'm just pausing. And so I just spontaneously told my story about dyslexia. The people afterwards coming up to me, and maybe they stuttered or maybe they had ADD or ADHD. See, I think everybody has something. If you're not changing, you're choosing.
Hi guys, we are here with John Haremza, who is an entrepreneur, speaker, author, and mentor with 37 years of experience in the network marketing industry. From humble beginnings as a maintenance worker in a potato chip factory, John rose to become a recognized authority in the field, generating over $1 billion in team sales and earning more than $30 million in personal commissions. That's impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
Known for helping ordinary people find confidence, step into leadership, and achieve extraordinary success, John's story is a testament to vision, grit, and the power of influence. As the author of The Power of Influence, he empowers others to communicate more effectively, lead with impact, and create meaningful results in business and life. So happy to have you here, John.
Thank you, Catalina. Very nice to be here.
Yes, I want to know all about it. So you built this massive empire. You inspired a lot of people. What was it like before all this started? What were you before?
Definitely none of that.
All right, the potato chip?
Yeah, I grew up in a very small town in Minnesota.
Okay.
And a town of about 2,000 people, and I actually have a learning disability. I have dyslexia. And so I still struggle with it today. But back then it really affected my self-esteem and my self-confidence. So I was very, very shy and very introverted. And so I'm kind of tried to be invisible all through school, just like that quiet little person, don't call on me. Although they would call on me and make me read out loud, and everybody be laughing at me and stuff. So I just really, when I got out of high school, I was really good with my hands, right? Working, building things and things like that. I got a job in a factory, and I used to stay after work. I was just a machine operator, and I'd stay after work to help the maintenance department, which I really, really loved. And there was an opening, and I ended up, getting into my dream job, which was maintenance, and then I eventually became the maintenance supervisor.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
What age was that?
Well, that was right out of high school, right? And so, I guess I would have been, 19 when I first went to work there.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and I really thought I had the best job I'd ever possibly get. And so, but I really loved my job and the people I worked with. It was really, I thought I'd arrived. And so, I was living in a trailer house and, making $9.50 an hour. And, my parents were really excited. They were just glad I had a job because everybody was worried about me because, I literally, was thought to be slow, dumb, and stupid all through school. And I remember one time actually, overhearing my dad, this is when I was really young. And I was out in my garage and I overheard him telling a friend about, how stupid I was and how concerned he was about me.
Dad said that? Bad. Really?
Yeah. And
I wish I could give you a hug right now. That's unacceptable, Dad. Wow.
So anyway, is kind of accidentally, a friend of mine invited me out to his house to look at a water filter. And, given my background, and I was so shy, I literally wouldn't even say hi to someone unless they said hi to me first, right? And so the idea of sales didn't even enter my mind. And, anyway, there was a breakdown at the factory that night, and so I ended up, being really late for this meeting, this home party, right? And I thought they wanted me to build a display, right, or look at the quality of the product. Certainly nothing to do with sales. And so I ended up, really late. It was like 8 o'clock at night. I finally got off of work, and so this was out in the country somewhere, and I just wanted to go home, right? Sink into my couch and have a beer and a pizza and start it over the next day. But I made the commitment to go, so I went. And I just remember walking into this living room, and there was I called it like these two suits from Minneapolis. I didn't own a suit, right? And I could just see the disdain on their faces. They're like, we just waited 2 hours for this guy, because they held the meeting up for me. There was 5 of us there at that meeting. And we all got excited. I got so excited, I wrote a check out for $480 and bought 4 of these water filters. And at that time I was living in a trailer house. I was engaged to be married. This was December of 1988, and I remember coming home, and my fiance at the time, like, "Oh my God, what did you do? Did you spend money?" And I'm like, "Don't worry about it. They're going to hold the check till Friday." And so that was kind of my entry into the sales industry. And so this water filter, you think about water filtration, this was 37 years ago, was kind of cutting edge, right? Bottled water was really just coming on the scene. And so I thought I really had something. And the way they sold these filters, they called it the puppy dog approach, right? You would actually, you give somebody a puppy and they're not going to want to give it up, right? So we'd let people try these water filters. And so the water in my town happened to be pretty good, but I knew the water in this neighboring town wasn't. So that weekend, I go to this town. This is December of 1988, and I'm knocking on doors, asking someone if they'd like a free week of water. And so I had 4 of these filters, and I placed 3 of the 4. 3 of the 4 people agreed to take them. And I came back the following week, and I brought my brother with me kind of for moral support, just to follow up on these 4 filters. And I sold 1 of the 3.
Okay.
And so I bought this for $120. I sold it for $179. I put $59 in my pocket, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that's the easiest money I ever made in my life." And I looked at my brother, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm going to be rich." And so, so that was my entry into sales and into this first. But I didn't understand. It was network marketing. I didn't know what that meant. It's where you build a team and you can get overrides. And they kept talking to me about. Talking to other people. And I'm like, why do I want to create my own competition? I don't want anyone else to do this, right? And so my brother saw me make this $59, so then he wanted to do it. And I'm like, I don't know, And I said, well, you're my brother. I'm going to let you in on this deal, but we need to make a pact between us that no one else is to know about this. So it's just going to be him and I, and we were going to get a bunch of these water filters that out and, make it $59 at a time. And so that was kind of what my goal was, make a few hundred extra dollars part-time. And then I went to an event in a neighboring town and listened to the speaker. And I went up to him afterwards, and I'm like, that was so exciting. I've never heard anything like this before. And we're going to go canvass this town and put out a bunch of water filters. And he says, "You're going to do what?" And then he said to me, I made $203,000 last year. And if you told me I had to knock on doors to do it, I'd have never done it. And then he asked me who brought me in, and I told him. He says, "You're actually in my downline." And so after the meeting, he brought me up to his room, and he talked to me about the concept of leverage and building a team of people and making a small amount off a lot of people rather than trying to just make money off my own sales. Mm-hmm. And I had a paradigm shift. I left there and completely changed from selling water filters to selling the opportunity. Mm-hmm. And a few months later, I quit my job and went full time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And then you just...
Yeah, it really happened slowly. Not in my wildest imaginations would I've ever thought I would have reached the level of success that I have, right? Really it was just a few thousand, or a few $100 extra. And, I was making like $2,500 a month full time, right? In my job. Right. And so I'm like, if I could just make $3,000 a month and be in business for myself, I wouldn't know what to do with the money. And so when I was able to do that, that's when I went full time. And then it just kind of every day felt like a discovery, right? And then I got introduced to personal development. And I started listening to, the Jim Rohns and the Zig Ziglars, and that was just like, I was like a world opened up to me that I didn't know existed. And I was like addicted to personal development.
Right.
And so, and I still, I think it's one of the most important elements for success. One of the quotes I love from Jim Rohn, he says, you need to work harder on yourself than you do on your job, right? Work on yourself, you make a fortune. Work on your job, you make a living. And I really just embrace that philosophy. And I would say, without question, I wouldn't be here today without diving into that personal development.
And investing in yourself.
Investing in myself.
That is. You were a maintenance worker in a potato chip factory, going back to that. Can you tell us about the mindset you had at that time? Did you have any idea of the potential you were sitting on? No,
not at all. I loved my job, right? And I was very, very creative, and my, my bosses were really great, and they really recognized my potential in that field, right? So I was moving up the ladder in that company, and I'd never be like top, but I could maybe get to $20 an hour or something at some point, right? So, and it's interesting because when they saw me get into this, right? And it's, not just my fiance at the time, but my coworkers, my parents, even my boss calling me up, John, you're going to throw your life away. You've really got a future here. And there's something in me that's just like, man, I got to do this, right? And so I took a chance and took a leap of faith. And because I remember another really interesting point, if you've ever been in a factory, right? We have this break room, we have lunch and coffee there. And we'd always grab a paper plate and take fresh hot potato chips just rolling off the fryer, just freshly salted. And so anyway, I'm up in the break room, and everybody knows I'm quitting. I'm going full time. And I remember this one person, they're teasing me about it'll never work. And I said, maybe you're right, but the worst thing I figure that can happen is I'll have to come back and get a job like you've got.
Right.
And you could have heard a pin drop in there at that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for those that are in that same situation where they're kind of afraid, they're skeptical to make that first investment in their Ford filter investment, I guess go for it. That's the advice. And what did your dad say? That the slow kid that he was,
Yeah, it's interesting. My dad was an alcoholic at the time, right? And so he had quit drinking, and he was really just like the kindest person in the world. He, took us hunting all the time and took us fishing all the time, but then he would cross over, after he'd have too much to drink, and then he'd get angry. And so not seeing that side of him where, his last probably 10 years of life, right before he passed away, he was like the most kindest person in the world, but everybody loved him. He was just like a really, really nice person and a hard worker. And so he was really, I think, really, really proud. He never saw me, see the level. He saw me have success, right? But not the level of success that I have now. Yeah.
Well, he sees you from up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that he passed. You've generated over $1 billion in team sales and earned more than $30 million in commissions. Do numbers like that make you reflect on how far you've come? Do you sit there and just...
Yeah, it's definitely, sometimes I got to pinch myself, almost like, number one, this wasn't supposed to happen to me, but number two, how did this happen? And I really, when you think about that, how did this happen? And I actually wrote another little book, and it was called Small Steps to the Top.
Okay.
And the concept behind it is never underestimate the impact of every decision you make, right? Regardless of how small or insignificant it may be, it has an impact on the outcome of your life. And I think about that statement, like that factory, when there was a breakdown and I was late for that meeting, how easy it would have been for me to just go home, right? But I'd made the commitment to go. I didn't want to go, I just wanted to go home, but I went to that meeting, and that one decision completely changed the direction of my life. And then you think of the compounding effect because of the nature of our business and talking to other people. Literally, that little decision I made has impacted literally it has rippled into hundreds of thousands of people's lives.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
Like that you have strong values and you wanted to keep your word.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the things, you talk about influence, right? I mean, I think, influence is interesting because, people gain influence because of the position they may be in, or they gain influence because of the family they might be with. But you can also gain influence by keeping your word, right? And doing what you commit to do or what you say you're going to do. And, being true to yourself.
That is so true. That is so true. And that actually goes hand in hand with the next question. What qualities or habits helped you go from ordinary beginnings to becoming not just successful, but a legend in a network marketing industry?
Well, I mean, definitely with what I just said, following through with what you commit to do, even after, the feeling or the emotion of making that commitment has worn off, right? And in many cases, even when I regret telling somebody I'm going to do something that I'm going to do and then realize, why did I do that, right? But because I committed, I follow through with it, right? So there's that. I think another major, key is the personal development. Without question, that has had probably the biggest influence on my life, right? From a standpoint of my philosophy, my decisions, the way I see people and the way I see the world, which has all contributed to the decisions we make, right? That, ultimately lead to where we are today. But I think another major part of that is consistency. It's I didn't have any, quantum leaps, right? It was all just a day at a time, a brick at a time, and I didn't, because everybody's looking for, especially today, they want something just to happen immediately, and it takes time. It takes time, and it takes time to have that belief and that faith when the paycheck isn't there yet. And I really did that. I mean, literally, in my early years, I just was wired. I was so flippin' excited about the possibilities that I never thought existed, and definitely didn't think would ever happen to me. And so I just took advantage of it, and I stayed. Obviously, all kinds of, ups and downs and setbacks, and that's what I think builds character. And it's I always tell people too, it's not necessarily how you handle yourself when everything is going great. It's what kind of a person, what kind of a leader are you when everything is turned against you, right? That's when the real character and I think real leadership shines.
That is, and you've emphasized that influence is one of the most important skills someone can develop. How does someone with no leadership experience begin to build influence?
Well, again, it's all about the way you handle every situation, every decision you make. If you're not somebody that's going to keep your word, if you're somebody that's going to exaggerate all the time, if you're somebody that's not going to be showing up, so you can start with nothing and you can build influence through just the way you treat people. And then I think, you got to constantly be working on yourself, because to build influence means somebody wants to be like you. Right? They want to learn from you. They can, gain information from you or knowledge from you. And so if you want to be able to provide that, you need to constantly be working on yourself, so you have something valuable, to share.
Right. And what about your book? That sounds amazing. Actually, you said you have 2 books. They both sound.
Yeah, the first book is called Right or Almost Right, and that's really, it's kind of like my life story, but it's also really my journey and all the ups and downs and the things that I did. And the concept behind Right or Almost Right is because I saw a lot of people out there working hard, right, seemingly, doing everything right, but they weren't having the success. And so the question is, are you doing it right? Are you doing it almost right?
Almost right.
Right? And it's that little adjustment that can make a major difference in everything that you do. I make like a comparison, with Tiger Woods, for instance. If you could take a really good golfer and Tiger Woods, and maybe their swing might look very, very similar or almost identical, but there's something different, right, about what a Tiger's doing, right? It's the little subtleties that I think make such a major difference in the outcome.
That is so true. I love it. John, can we talk a little bit more about the dyslexia?
Yeah. I think you hear of a lot of, sometimes what you think is your biggest weakness. I used to think, God, if I could just read, I could conquer the world, right? And although I do think, one thing it did for me, for sure, is it made me very, in touch with people, the way they feel. right? I mean, I can really sense when someone's uncomfortable because of how uncomfortable I was in so many different circumstances, right? But it's interesting because I spent my whole life hiding, because I was so...
Shy? Were you ashamed?
Well, yeah, I was ashamed. I was ashamed of this, and because it would come up in different areas, and then, I mean, some of you would ask me to read something, and I get all flustered and start sweating, and so, even my wife at the time didn't know I had dyslexia. I got really, really good at hiding it, right? And so I'm in this company, and I'm having success, and I was asked to speak. And I mean, I'd done some meetings in homes and small meetings like that, but now I'm asked to speak at this conference. There was like 5,000 people in the audience. And, I had these little recipe cards that no one could understand what it was. I mean, I could barely read it, and I wrote it, right? I mean, it was, but it was, what I was going to talk about. And so I get introduced. I'm up on this, behind this podium, hiding behind the podium. Now I can actually get out there and, talk, but I'm hiding behind this podium. And I go down, and somehow my cards got all mixed up. And so I'm like panicking. I'm just pausing, and I'm sure people are like, what's wrong? And so I just spontaneously told my story about dyslexia and, the way I felt in high school and all this kind of thing. And I mean, literally, you could have heard a pin drop in that place. And what was amazing about it is the people afterwards coming up to me, and maybe they stuttered, or maybe they had ADD or ADHD. See, I think everybody has something.
Yes. And
for me being, just releasing that, number one, it just took a ton of, bricks or pressure off of me. But what I found, what I was so embarrassed of, what I was so ashamed of, revealed, a side of me that I think related with people in such a way that they felt empowered. And what I thought was like my biggest holdback and weakness became one of the biggest strengths that helped me influence other people and inspire other people. And so, it was a major turning point in my career. That one moment. I mean, I think about that. What would have happened if those cards weren't mixed up and I would have just went through my normal, kind of, bullet points or whatever, instead of just breaking down and sharing that real story.
So everything happens, I guess, embrace it the way God has it planned for you, and just lean into...
Everything happens for a reason, right?
Yeah. Wow. And how about influence? How did your dad influence you?
Well, I mean, number one, he was a very good person, right? And he was very hardworking, and so I had a really strong work ethic and all that kind of stuff. And I share that story about what happened in the garage, right? But generally he was a great dad, and he was very encouraging and all that. What was so impactful about that moment is he didn't know I was, I overheard that.
Which is more hurtful.
Yeah, so it's like that's, to me, that was like what he truly felt about me, right?
But maybe he was just worried. Maybe it came out of...
So, I haven't talked about that in a long time. So the point about influence is how one little statement you can carry for your whole life.
And how did that fuel you? Were you angry and you just wanted to prove him wrong, or were you...
No, well, at the time, and I actually just, because I told you I was good with my hands and building things, so I had actually built this, I had this little black lab puppy, and so I built, all by myself, I built this, big doghouse. And so I just remember after hearing that, I crawled in this doghouse with my little black lab and just cried. And so I never told him about it until when he was going through treatment. And you have to go in and I shared it with him. I mean, he had no idea he even said it, really. And so he didn't remember it or anything, but I remembered it.
And how did you heal from such wound? How were you able to heal that?
Well, I mean, I think because I was very quiet and stuff in high school and all that. Where I really started to excel when I went to this work at this factory, and I'm being recognized for I was doing a really good job at this place and building things and creating things, and I was really valued there. And so that was really hard to leave that. And then I get into this network marketing, and I get around these whole different world that I didn't know existed, and the personal development, and then being recognized there. I mean, again, talk about influence. When you have somebody that you view as a superior or whatever, or somebody, and they start recognizing you and starting seeing your value, you begin to start to believe it, right? And so, yeah, I mean, it's been really just an incredible journey, to be honest with you.
It sounds like it. And to lead more into the human side of success, I feel like you're now at the point where you've healed all those wounds. You realized actually your potential. You could have been an architect too, or an engineer, because you're good with your hands.
Well, I don't know if I could, because of schooling and stuff. I could have never made it through school, but because of my reading and stuff. But I was very creative and all that. But I mean, I do think that if I would have stayed in that job, I probably would have, just because of my ambition and my creative nature and stuff, I probably would have ended up doing something that would have brought me to, maybe a higher level than just, or maybe I would have, advanced really high into that company or something. But, because I think a lot of people, if given the opportunity, because so many people just die with the music still in them, right? They never, maybe it's due to not taking a chance, right? Because they're so scared. And, one of the things I also found interesting is, because I would talk to other people that was coworkers, and they all thought I was crazy and, whatever, with me venturing off doing this. And I remember thinking to myself, if you're not willing to change, because, I was doing the happy hour, I was playing the, sports or whatever after work and that kind of thing. And I just quit all that cold turkey, and I just focused on building this business.
Oh, wow.
And so, but I remember hearing a quote that falls into this, it helps understand it, is, if you're not changing, you're choosing. Right? And they would sit and complain about their job, they'd complain about their life and what they're doing, whether at happy hour. Right? Instead of taking and making some changes, and I think you see this all around us constantly. People complain about life, they're really almost miserable, but they're not willing to take and make the change.
It's so true. It is. And they get stuck in that same cycle. And
yeah, and I think for me, I mean, it was really the opportunity, the door that opened up that I walked through, and that, I started seeing this and just getting excited and moving forward. So it really, for me, it wasn't like a conscious decision, because I really enjoyed my job and I enjoyed my life. I thought I really was doing well. And then this door opened up that I just kind of, I went through it, but I didn't know what I was walking into. I mean, it wasn't intended to become what it has. It was intended to make a few $100 extra a month. And it just, I just kept learning and, expanding my my possibilities.
very true. And are you the kind of person, because you have those ones that think you have to focus on one thing at the time, and then you have the other side that, oh, it's okay, we need to have multiple side gigs. Which one?
Well, I definitely think that focus is key.
So stick with
yeah,
one
you
at a
need to be
time.
focused. Too many people out there. Number one, they're like a ping pong ball in a wind tunnel. They're just all over the place, right? I mean, you really have to be focused if you want to accomplish. Anytime I've ever made a lot of money, I have been laser focused, right? And I've had, where I'm having really great success, and I've got money coming in almost, residually or passively, and then I get distracted into other things, and how it ultimately impacts my core focus. I mean, being focused and on one thing is incredibly important, I think, if you really want to make something work.
Right. There are those like me that love juggling. And although I know I could get a lot faster focusing on one at a time, I don't get satisfaction from doing the same, just one. So I always, I have the podcast, I have the wedding thing, and I have the Nissim Realty, and it's just I have my days. And what is your advice for people like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing that right now myself. I'm not focused. I'm all over the place. I got so many different things going on.
Right, you're doing the trading.
Yeah, doing the trading and the
Coaching
the books.
people with influence.
Yeah, and I got a couple other businesses that I'm involved in,
Okay.
and so I'm in them, but if I had it to do over again, I would have tried to stay just focused on my core. Yeah.
What would be your core? Like, what would you choose as?
Yeah, it's where I made my fortune. It's finding a good company with a good product, something you can really believe in, because that's one of the things that's really important to me. I can't just sell something to make money. I have to actually believe in what it is, and that's what's happening because I've had to leave companies, and it's because I think one of the most important elements for success, for sure in what I do, but I think it will spill into almost everything, is belief. Right? Because people buy people. It's your passion, your posture, belief, enthusiasm about what it is you're doing that attracts or influences others. And there's always times where that will be questioned, right? Because things happen that shouldn't happen. But if you still have that core belief that it's going to work out, you keep moving forward. But when you lose that belief that this is a shit show and it's not going to work out, then you need to make a decision. Right? Because it's not serving you, and it's just and I've been there. I've had to do that and make that tough decision. Walk away and make it. I mean, I've walked away from where I'm making 7 figures, and because of things and circumstances, I couldn't continue to do it because of once you know something, you can't unknow it.
Right. I don't know if I want to dig into that.
Yeah. Well, it just comes down to my belief, or when you. Well, I'll probably just not go into that.
Okay. Advice for aspiring leaders. For someone who feels like they don't have the confidence to lead, where can they start?
Well, I'm going to go back to personal development. It's the right information. I mean, if you're listening to the wrong people, you're going to have the wrong result. And so, again, it comes back, everything influences us. Right? Yes. Everything, the people that we hang around with, the shows that we watch, I mean, everything around us influences us. And if you're listening to the wrong people, you're not going to have what's that saying? You're not going to get a positive result out of listening to a negative person.
Oh, that's true.
So, yeah, surround yourself with people that have what you want, right?
Unfortunately,
I heard something, matter of fact, on Instagram. I loved the little quote, and it was something like this. It went, you know what I think is, don't listen to people that aren't going where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but those are the most opinionated ones.
Yeah, exactly.
There's always the person that has no job that's going to tell you how you need to make the money.
Exactly.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you ever feel the weight of your responsibility as a mentor to so many people? Do you feel like if you give that advice, like, ooh?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, so that's why you have to be a person one of the things that kind of the darker side of my industry of network marketing is the exaggeration, or the people, in some cases just flat out not telling the truth. And then trying to entice someone to do something. Like people ask me all the time, John, well, what can I earn here?
Right.
And I say, somewhere between 0 and a bunch. I don't know. I don't know, what your work ethic is. I don't even know if people like you. It's yes, it's up to you, but if you're not willing to make changes or improve yourself, for some people, I've even went as far as to say, I just don't think this is for you, So.
What about if we had 1 minute, could you coach me in 1 minute?
Well, could I coach you in 1 minute?
Yeah.
I think I would probably have to ask you, my coaching would probably be more in the lines of asking you questions to get a better understanding of, what you're doing, what you're trying to do, what's holding you back. So I could give you, otherwise I would just say, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, that making sure that every decision you make, it counts, right? Regardless, even people that make stupid posts on Facebook or whatever, or they live their emotional life out on Facebook or on Instagram, and it's just, I see stuff all the time, and I just shake my head. I'm like, I think another thing I would tell people, have you ever heard of Mel Robbins? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's got the 5-second rule. And, don't react. Think before you react. Right? So, as a matter of fact, Napoleon Hill talks about this in Think and Grow Rich, or in his Think and Grow Rich.
In his Scam book, he never met with those people that he wrote about.
Yeah.
Apparently. But anyway.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Such a good book, though.
I mean, everything in the whole world of personal development spawns from that book.
I know, it's crazy.
But, so anyway, I wish you wouldn't have told me that. No. But anyway, what he talks about, one's ability to control your emotions is one of the most important characteristics of success.
Well, still a great book. You're right. Entrepreneurs often talk about imposter syndrome. Do you ever feel like you didn't belong? Obviously, you told me you said you didn't belong at the table. If so, how did you combat it? Like when you feel like you don't really belong in a room, how do you, well, obviously now you're in a different...
It's surprising though, those insecurities and stuff still, I find myself still struggling with them.
You still?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember, it's funny, even when I went back to, I think it was my 20-year class reunion. Mm-hmm. Oh. And, I pretty much guarantee there is no one in my class that had anywhere near the level of success that I've had. And yet I go in there and that whole experience of, I just reverted right back to that kid. And I just wanted to get out of there.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it's, but yeah, as far as this feeling, I definitely had that and still will find myself feeling that way once in a while. So
you just basically leave the moment, like go somewhere else?
Yeah, just try, and again, because we, again, coming back to influence, listening to the wrong people. The person we listen to the most is ourself, right? It's all of our self-talk. It's our negative self-talk. And so, I tell this story about that Earl Nightingale. He talked about that your mind is like a farmer's land. And he said, you're like the land doesn't care what you plant. Yeah. It'll, you can plant what he called nightshade, which is the deadly poison, or corn, and you water and take care of it. It's going to, grow nightshade as easy as the corn, right? And so he's like, what are you planting in your mind?
Yeah.
Right? And what are you watering? And so we get this story of ourselves, and then there's outside forces that are, encouraging you. Because we battle with ourselves all the time. That little person, on your shoulder telling you you can't do something, or what am I thinking that I can do this? And so you got to constantly be conscious of that negative self-talk and catch it, and then try to change the narrative, change the story in your head.
Right.
And so I've done that through listening to personal development.
Very
Yeah, if I'm feeling that, I just, put in a Jim Rohn or something, and it just gets me fired up again. Even the same information, but I keep hearing it a little bit differently. Even today, I'll still revert back to that stuff.
Interesting. So keep the legends always in your on your playlist.
Mm-hmm.
What was the hardest moment for you in your nearly 4 decades of work, and how did you get through it?
I guess the hardest for me would be, just really believing in something, wholeheartedly throwing your whole heart into it, and then things out of your control happen that, destroy it, and you find yourself having to start over. And yes, you learn all the time, and I think this happens to everybody in every business, right?
True.
And so then, wondering, can I do it again? So I think it's the setbacks, but then even more so, as I think a little more about that, it's probably the thing that's the most disappointing is sometimes people that you really trusted, right? That you really felt had your best interest, that you could really, and then all of a sudden, something else happens, and that can be, that can hurt. Right?
That is, yeah, and that's inevitable. There's always going to be somebody that's going to disappoint.
Yeah, it's fun. I even I've told my daughters this at a young age, and they'll like have best friends, and they're like, no, that'll, I'll say just, don't share everything or whatever, be a little bit, and I says, everybody's your best friend until something happens that all of a sudden you're not serving them or whatever.
That is very true. Oh, that's great advice for the youngsters out there.
Yeah.
Definitely. Keep something in your back pocket.
Yeah, that just reminded me of another story, and this came out of a book called The Traveler's Gift. And there's a story, about this guy that had an accident. He's going through some rough times. Anyway, I don't want to tell the whole thing, but to shorten it, he ended up, getting in an accident and being in a coma, and he traveled it back in time and meeting all these wise people. And one of the people he met was King Solomon. And King Solomon, they were talking about, influence. And he asked, the guy's name was Ponder, I think his name was, the story was on. And King Solomon says, do you have any kids? And he says, yeah, I've got a young girl. She's 14, Jenny. And he said, do you ever worry about, who Jenny hangs around with? And he says, oh, absolutely. When she's with the wrong crowd, we see it in her attitude. We see it, definitely makes a difference. And then he said, at what age does that stop? Is it 20? Is it 25? It never stops.
Yeah. Even though we react differently, but yeah. It's always we're gonna soak something. What are your thoughts on King Solomon? Because a lot of people don't even realize when you go to the Holy Land. Have you been to the Holy Land yet, Israel?
Yes, I have.
You have? Did you notice at his site, everybody just it smells like urine. They all just go pee on his.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've always thought he was, the wisest man, the wisest king. But now in Israel,
Really?
I guess he never repented, having all the,
Wow.
the idols.
You're telling me all this stuff that, are just,
We just went through some other route.
I mean, there's some major, points of wisdom. One of the other from King Solomon is he was in the same story. He was talking about him seeking advice and wisdom from, his what they called him. And anyway, the point is he said, when you start thinking yourself as a king, that's when you're soon to be replaced. And I think that's another major point is people start reading their own press releases, and they get, thinking they're all that.
Yep. They get to the peak and they start just.
Yeah, and the thing of it is there's all kinds of circumstances that, yes, it's your hard work and making good decisions and all that, but most of the time when you look at someone who's had a lot of success, there's also timing or getting involved in something at the right time, and then, yes, having the wisdom and staying focused and taking advantage of it, but it magnifies and multiplies the success that you experience, right? But you think it may be all because you're so great, and yeah, you worked hard and all that, but it might have been because you were really in a great environment or really in a great, hot business or something.
So do you think those people that, what about those people that say, oh, if it's meant for you, it's going to be anyway? Or maybe,
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure you know the story about the, what is it, the two boats and the helicopter?
No, I actually don't.
Oh, so there's this big flood.
Okay.
Right? And, they want to evacuate the town, and they, going around, you need to, the flood's coming, you need to get out. And this one family just says, no, we're going to be fine. God's going to take care of us. And so pretty soon, the water's rising, the boat comes by, get in, we'll take you to.
I can see where
you
you're
remember
going
that,
with that.
yeah. Anyway, then they're on the roof. Another boat comes by. We'll bring you to safety. And pretty soon they're on the peak of the roof, and there's water, and a helicopter, drops the ladder. We'll pull you to safety. And then when they finally die and they go up to heaven, and they says, I thought you'd always take care of us. And they says, well, we sent you two boats and a helicopter. So takes care of those who take care of themselves, right? Another great story in this regard is this came from Earl Nightingale. And again, I listen to all this personal development, and stuff just hits me, and I'm like, wow, that's powerful, that makes sense. And then you can, make a point with it, right? And anyway, there's this preacher, going down a country road, and just admiring the landscape and everything, and he happens to notice this one farm, and just magnificent farm. And the farmer happened to be out there on a tractor, and he hailed the farmer down on his tractor, and he says, "Boy, the Lord has certainly blessed you with a magnificent farm." And the farmer says, "Yes, he certainly has." But he says, "You should have seen it when they had it all to himself."
Ooh. And actually, those are both great. But I'm thinking about going back to that boat one. So what if, now that they made it to heaven, maybe, because God knows everything, right? Like He knows what's going to happen to us. He even, does God not know what we're going to pick because He gave us the freedom of choice? Does that mean He doesn't know what we're going to pick? Or does
Well, I mean, I don't think He ultimately, He puts things in front of us, but we still have to take advantage of it.
But does He know what we're going to, which?
That's the thing. You look at The Secret.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And The Secret, the whole thing about manifesting. And so many people misunderstood the point of that book.
True.
Is, it's just like, I'm going to be a millionaire. Yeah, okay, but what the whole concept is you just consume yourself with the thought of that. And then your creative juices and everything else kick in to open the doors and to lead you to learn, to go in the right direction, to make decisions that will make that come. It's not a matter of just thinking about it and it's going to happen.
Right.
It's the thought that is going to, create the inspiration to do the research or see the right person or make the right move.
Right.
So you have to still do the work.
You still have to do the work, but isn't our ultimate goal to be in heaven? And if they would have picked to go on that
Yeah,
first
but why
boat,
not do the most you can while you're here?
True, but what if getting on that boat was going to make you sin and not go to heaven?
Well,
how do we know
that might be another, we could probably debate that a little bit.
Yes. So I wrote a book called God Knows Best. And I feel like in everything that I don't regret anything. I think like everything that happens is because God knew best. I didn't make this choice. I didn't go on that boat. Maybe I would have gone there. I would have tripped and cussed somebody out. I would have left somebody off the boat. Something would have happened. I wouldn't have ended up in heaven. But I didn't pick the boat.
No, but if you know mindset. What? If you got in the boat and you maintain the same person you were, and you're a good person, you believe in God, and you keep trying to make the right decisions, just not thinking He's going to do it all for you.
True. If I would have chosen that, I would have still believed God knows best. So that I would have been like, God knows best. I got on this boat because He knows best. But then...
Yeah, why would He even send the boat? He sent the boat. You just decided not to get in.
Our watchers are probably going to be like, what is going on? I promise you guys, there are no drugs on this set. We're just deep thinkers.
Yeah.
But you want to break this out with some rapid fire questions?
Sure.
So we're going to be like, boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
What's the biggest misconception about success?
That it's easy.
What's the worst piece of business advice you've ever heard?
The worst piece of business advice I've ever heard? You don't need to get in a boat.
Back to my boat. Yes. Oh, what do all great leaders have in common?
I think that they have they see a picture of something in their mind, and they're not going to let anyone derail them from what their mission or what they want. Right?
Love that. What's one mindset shift someone could make today to completely change their life?
One shift they can completely make. It's, I think coming back to what I talked about, making decisions, just every decision you make makes a difference, regardless of how small or insignificant it may seem at the time. It's going to manifest it some way back in your life.
So have strong values.
Yeah.
Hold on. Money, mindset, and mentorship. Which is most important and why?
Money, mindset, or mentorship? Mindset.
Yeah. That was a rhetorical one. Let's just say that. What's the one thing you wish you'd known earlier in your journey?
Oh man, probably nothing lasts forever.
Dang. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when you're having incredible success, it's great. I mean, Jim Rohn talks about the seasons of life, Successful people, in the summer, they're thinking fall, right? In the fall, they're thinking winter. In the winter, they're thinking spring.
So stay a season ahead, just...
Yep. And if, I think along those same lines too, you just think about if you're going through a bad stage, it's temporary. It's just a moment in life when you really think about it. Just stay focused and keep doing, trying to do the right things, and you're going to come out on the other side of it. And then you're going to have a season of greatness. But remember, that's not going to last either.
Yeah. Remember that whenever, those things in the movies, or if you've had anybody in the hospital on the life support, and you see the little lines?
Yeah.
I think the worst thing it can be if it's flat.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
It's always going to go up and down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what makes life. Earl Nightingale talks about your life should end like a broken motion picture. You're in full stride. Too many people, I mean, they number one, they tiptoe through life trying to get to death safely, and instead of experiencing all that there is. I mean, that's you think about. I mean, I think about the experiences, the things that I've done that I never possibly ever imagined ever doing. I couldn't even in my wildest dreams. I mean, there's so many things to experience in this world if you just, allow yourself to, take some risks.
Yeah. What is the wildest?
The wildest
you've ever had?
Gosh, I've done so many incredible things, from staying at just incredible resorts and having just some great experiences, things that just you're like, I can't even believe that I'm able to be a part of this and be here.
What are some things you still haven't done, but you have them on your to-do list?
I think ultimately right now my goal is just to try to take everything I've learned and have some impact or some influence on someone else. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Right now, I'm not thinking as you bring about. I've traveled so many places. I've done so many things. Off the top of my mind, I can't think of something that I want to do.
That's beautiful that you're actually not. It's not even about you anymore.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are depressed because they focus too much on themselves, and they don't actually. The moment you start thinking about others, is when you're not, so much into your head.
Yeah.
This whole, in one sentence, define success.
Oh, define success. It's not really about money. I think one of the words that can ultimately define success is happiness. You think about that, isn't that kind of all-encompassing? You can be happy. You can be successful without being wealthy. You can be, have a lot of money and not be successful either, in the sense of who you are and who you're impacting, right? You think about some of these people and some of the way they may make money. Let's say if you're a drug lord or something like that, you may have success, but you're not a good person, and so I guess it's defining success as being, I don't want to say content, because I think we're always wanting to grow, but feeling good about what you've done and the impact that you've left on others.
Okay. So accomplished. What about happiness? What is happiness to you?
Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
Right.
I think we're always striving to be, but I think it's just, again, I look at my life right now. Sure, I'd like more money. I'd like more of different things, but at the end of the day, I'm really, happy with my life. I got good kids. I got great friends. I've had great experiences. I love food. I eat at the best restaurants you can imagine. I love to cook. I pretty much do whatever I want to do.
So having the freedom to do what you want to do, or
There
is
you
it
go.
peace of mind?
Yeah, peace of mind, but having peace of mind for sure. That you can sleep like a baby, right? But also, I think that's ultimately right there. You hit it. Is just being able to do whatever you want to do. You don't need permission.
Well, are you married, if I may ask?
I am not.
I figured you want to have the freedom to do what you want to do.
I was for
Can't do that
25
as a
years.
married man, by the way.
I was for 25 years.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that was a long run. Okay. Well, ladies, we got a single handsome gentleman here living in Las Vegas. Game number 1, truth or myth? Ask John to declare common statements about leadership as truth or myth, and if you want to explain briefly, if not, that's cool. We'll just go to, we'll have quick ones again. Leaders are born, not made.
Truth.
They're born. Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of, can I do a follow-up on that?
Yes,
Because I
please.
remember doing this podcast with this person that's really, really successful. And now he's selling coaching and all that kind of stuff. And I forget what the question was, but I said, I can teach you what to do, but I can't teach you what I do. If you think about that for a moment,
Let's
right?
think
If you
about
look
that.
at,
I
I don't
like
care what whether it's the industry I'm in, it's the real estate or whatever, there's people that excel very easily in what they're doing. They just have a sense of knowing what to do. Maybe it's the way they interact with people, or positioning, a statement at the right time or whatever. But I think there's the top of the top of the top in certain professions. They have something that you can maybe acquire over time, but they just have an instinct about them that they just know what to do at the right time. If that makes sense.
That does, yeah. So I'm glad you actually explained that, because a lot of people would have been like, I don't know. Yeah, which...
Yeah, it's a sense of knowing, or these people exist in every industry, and
you don't have to be able to read fast, or
Yeah.
you just have to have that.
yeah, I mean the people that really have success, they're not learning this from college or a book, or they're living it, and there's their instincts, and they're paying attention.
Interesting. Okay. Is it lonely at the top?
It's always lonely at the top.
Dang.
But at the same notion, if you treat people right, you don't necessarily have to be, it's not crowded at the top, right? But surround yourself with good people that, although, sometimes that's really hard to do, because a lot of times people have hidden agendas.
That's what makes it lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, true.
Yeah, because people always, you're constantly, in a way, people are wanting something from you, so it's something, and you have to be careful. And I've certainly fallen victim to that many times. Because one of my biggest weaknesses, I just have a really hard time saying no.
Interesting. Well, I'm gonna, if I may coach you on that I can help with.
Okay.
Yes.
Others have tried.
Yeah, we can exchange some
Yeah.
coaching lessons here.
Yeah.
I'm very good at saying no these days. The best leaders delegate everything.
True.
Consistency is more important than talent in achieving success.
True.
So, consistency, yeah, which is what got you to where you are. Game number 2, what would John do? So these are some real life scenarios, and I guess you would have to offer advice or solutions in the moment. Someone has 0 leadership experience but sees a business opportunity. What's their first step?
Probably study how to win friends and influence people. Understand people.
And emotional intelligence?
Emotional intelligence, exactly.
That's kind of hard to study. That's, like you said, you need to kind of have that.
Yeah, one of the things I've done through my whole life, and I did it without really knowing, I call it a personal checkup. right, is constantly asking yourself how you're doing. And then the key to that is being really truthful with yourself. Because, because I'm constantly critiquing myself and asking myself what I should have done different, or I wish I would have done it this way, or what I did good. So, and in my business, we look, everything has a set of skills or a set of activities or a set of things that we do that will, raise the bar, right? Like Jim Rohn talks about, almost everything in life can boil down to a half a dozen things that really move the needle. Right? Where we spend so much time on so much other things, but on those half a dozen things, I evaluate myself, how am I doing?
So check in with yourself.
Yeah, that personal checkup.
I think that's a great piece of advice right there. Wow. A team member undermines your authority during a meeting. What's your immediate response?
Well, internally, I will probably be fuming or something like that, but I wouldn't address that there. I would address it after the fact.
Just take him separately. You're mentoring someone who's on the verge of quitting because of self-doubt. What do you say to keep them in the game?
What do I say to somebody that's on the verge of quitting? I think that then you want to probably just really, have that encouragement talk that you're so close. I teach a lot through stories. Just like, again, referring back to the gold mine, he stopped 3 feet of, 3 feet of gold, right? It's that next day. And one of the other things and I've heard this and this really makes a lot of sense, is never quit when you feel like it. Never quit on the day you want to quit. Give it one more day.
Interesting.
Yeah. Give it one more day, because tomorrow something could happen.
What about?
Or even letting people know you're so close. You're so close to a breakthrough.
Very cool. I like that. Game number 3. I'm moving this along because I want to get as much stuff out of you as possible. Okay. I'm squeezing you. John's golden rule. Building influence as a beginner. So basically, I'm challenging you to share one golden rule for success tailored to these specific scenarios.
Okay.
Building influence as a beginner.
Building influence as a beginner is, be a person of your word.
Nice. Scaling a business without losing your values.
Scaling a business without losing your values. I would probably have to say because we can do things shortcut, but ultimately it's going to come back and haunt you. So just do what's right, not what's easy.
Nice. Overcoming fear of failure.
Just push through it. We all have it. You just got to push through it.
Leading a team when morale is low.
Well, again, coming back to influences, if you're down, you're bringing your whole team down. If your team is down and you're up, you're going to pull them up with you. So you got to be essentially their life support system.
Brilliant. And now we are approaching the most important part of the podcast, which are the audience questions. So every episode, we get some questions from the audience, and we're going to answer directly to them. I want my audience to feel included.
I love it.
To be part of the podcast, because we're doing this for them. Amanda, thank you for the question. How do you stay motivated after achieving so much? Do you ever feel like you've arrived?
I can tell you that the road is always better than the inn. Right? I'm the happiest when I'm in pursuit. Even knowing it's great to step back and enjoy, the fruits of your labor, but you're still happier when you're in the hunt.
Oh, yes. That is so true. It's like, what now? If you're at the peak, what's next?
There's always a higher peak.
Yes. So true. David, what's the one mistake you see new entrepreneurs make, and how can they avoid it?
One mistake new entrepreneurs make. A mistake new entrepreneurs make. They probably overspend. I know I've been guilty of that.
Yes. Whew, that is so true. Chloe, how do you handle moments where self-doubt creeps in, even now? Even now?
Yeah, for me, it's getting around positive people. It's listening to the personal development or reading or whatever. I mean, I can get inspired even by watching a great movie, right? I mean, everything has a lesson in it.
That's true, if you're willing to learn.
Yeah.
Open to learning, yeah. From Michael, what's the one skill everyone should learn if they want to lead a great life?
If they want to read it, I guess, you're going to get back what you give.
You're going to reap what you sow. And you talked about leaving behind a legacy of empowerment and leadership. When people remember John Haremza, what's the message you want them to take away?
That I truly always followed through with my commitments, and that he always did what he said he was going to do.
That's a nice one. In this day and age where people mostly don't follow.
Yeah, and it can be an expensive rule to live with.
Yeah. How, if you could change that, what kind of advice would you give these people that don't follow through?
What's interesting about them too is they always seem to justify it for some reason, for their own, for their own peace of mind or whatever. But it impacts. I mean, it's just like because when you're giving people information, especially if you're influencing them, they're making decisions based off of information you're giving them.
Right.
And those decisions, if they're not, like in my business, if you're telling somebody that's something they can do when that's not realistic, and they're making decisions, or let's say you're gonna, something's changing in your business or you're leaving, but yet you're sharing that. Again, people are making decisions based off of information that they believe to be true.
That's
life decisions, yeah.
And it's interesting because you might mean something and you might have maybe said it for a different purpose, but whatever it is that they perceive could be used differently or interpreted differently. So it's very interesting. Like you said, that advice for your daughter, always valid. Keep some, don't give too much information.
Yeah.
If you could sit down with your younger self, back when you were building water filter displays, what advice would you give him?
One of the things I wish I would have done a lot earlier in my life is I wish I would have understood money a little bit better. I've made a lot of, decisions that maybe I still have to take responsibility for them because I made them, but, they weren't so good. I mean, I've made a lot of money, I lost a lot of money. And if I would have had a little bit more knowledge in the area of finances and the way money worked and stuff like that,
to get a mentor?
I'd be in a lot better position.
So have like a financial mentor or?
Yeah, financial mentor. But I think, you could probably, in a lot of different areas in life, even like when I went to high school and you think about, history class or any of these things, and you're there as a kid and you're like, what, this is stupid. Why are we, and it's just now I look back at that and how important understanding some of that stuff was and how it really impacts your life. Yeah.
So I guess if you're present in the moment and you try to learn from everything, that would help.
Yeah, one of the things I love is, again, this came from Stephen Covey, I think it was, and it was this guy by the name of Lou Tice, and he talked about people react not according to the truth as it really is, but according to the truth as they believe it or perceive it to be. And you can have conflicting beliefs, right? And you can, but information can change beliefs.
Sure.
So that's the thing. We might believe something today that information is, presented, that all of a sudden that we, change that belief.
It is so true. And whatever we may believe about that specific information today might not be the same interpretation in 10 years from now.
Yeah. And a lot of stuff is constantly being spun to influence you in one way or the other. I mean, look at the media and we could get into politics. I mean, it's
Yeah, we don't even want to.
And so to try to sort through, what's really real.
It is so true. One thing I've always said when I was a kid, I used to think, and I've always been kind of a weird kid, I guess, is I've always thought that when two people are talking, there are actually six. The one who's talking, the one that's perceived by whomever's listening, and the one that's deep inside that we don't really reveal, which some would say is, maybe is that the Holy Spirit that talks through us, or that, that voice that tells you, like, don't do this or do that, or that inner voice. And I've always tried to put myself in the other person's shoes, like even in this,
absolutely,
during this interview, sometimes I'm thinking like being you and answering and listening. So it's very interesting how people don't understand, like they just, instead of trying to make your own interpretation, try to really think what exactly did they mean to say by that. Like think about John saying it, not me thinking what John said.
And that's such a huge point. Is constantly, I'm doing that all the time. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. And so really a dramatic story on this is this guy gets into this train car with his two kids. And the kids are like screaming and running around, completely out of control. And the father is just like in a trance, like he's paying no attention. And the people in the car are really getting irritated. You can see them rolling their eyes and everything else. And finally somebody gets to the point and just says, sir, would you get your kids under control? And it like snapped them out of a trance. And he says, oh, I'm sorry. We just left the hospital. They just lost their mother. And you have an opinion of irritation and frustration, and I can't believe this is going on, to one of empathy and how can I help you? So you don't know what's going on in someone's life.
Wow, yeah. Oh, what a mic drop on this episode with that story. Oh my gosh, John.
And all these things come from me listening to personal development and hearing these stories and hearing these things that really, it's just because I think that's the way people learn and really get something, is through a story.
Yes, and you shared so many amazing stories.
Thank you.
Yeah. Where can people find you? What, it gives you some time to still process if you're a multitasker like I am.
Yeah, so it's just my name, and be careful. I'm verified, so I got the blue dot, and if that's one of the things that's really frustrating in this day and age is all the imposters. The people trying to steal your profiles and stuff, and representing that. I've got crazy stories in that area. It's like happens constantly. It's really frustrating.
Well, so people are just using your name, and that. So John Haremza. Would be on IG.
Instagram would be IG at John Haremza.
Okay, perfect,
right?
Easy.
And so would Facebook.
Okay, and I guess they would be. What kind of businesses? What would they get besides coaching? You would actually offer coaching classes and trading.
Yeah, some trading and into crypto space and but a lot of. I've got my YouTube channel and my Instagram and Facebook, but on YouTube I've got hundreds of videos, short little, people have very short attention spans today of little, like some of these stories or just little, small points. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So because I want to make sure, what are we promoting today? How can people be helped?
Yeah, and literally, if you read my book, either one of them, it's really me. I mean, you're going to see, as you know me, my personality really coming out. I'm doing the things that I'm talking about.
Oh, nice. Fantastic. Well, John, if you don't have any question, one last call.
No, I'm good.
Really? Well, I thank you so much for coming. And please follow John, as he mentioned, and we're going to put the info right here in the bottom. And such a pleasure.
Yeah, this has been a pleasure. And you asked some questions, and when you talk about open up, I mean, some things I hadn't talked about in a long time, and it really kind of grabbed me.
That's awesome. I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.